Okay, so we have got a few number of people here. First, welcome to day 6 of PRAGATII test booster sessions by Admizz. I'm your tutor, and today, as same as the previous session, we'll be continuing with logical reasoning. All right, but before that, I just want to confirm, is the screen visible to everyone? Okay, so we will be starting this session promptly. The same as the previous session, we'll be discussing on logical reasoning, right? But today, in the previous session, we discussed blood relations, puzzles, coding, and decoding. But in today's session, we are going to discuss seating arrangements, direction sense, and Venn diagrams. All three of these topics are really fun to deal with. They are really stimulating intellectually. And so hopefully you guys will enjoy this session as much as I will. So without any further ado, let's quickly start with the first topic, that is seating arrangements. Okay. So seating arrangements, all right. Seating arrangements. Seating arrangement questions usually involve an arrangement where you need to arrange the pattern in a way that it fulfills the condition that the question demands. All right, so what that means is that in seating arrangement questions, you basically have to first estimate or at least be sure that the proper seating arrangement is what you calculated, and I'll be explaining that. And this concept will be clearer once we move to the examples. But for the time being, remember that seating arrangement basically asks you to basically find which person or which entity is placed in what position. All right, so that's the only thing that you have to remember at this moment. Once we start diving into examples, these concepts will be far, far clearer. All right. So now there are various categories of seating arrangements. All right. So the first one is rectangular arrangement, which, as the name implies, will be dealing with people who sit around a rectangular sort of structure, right? So one sits here, one sits here, one sits here, other sits. So they sit basically around this particular rectangle. Linear arrangement is when people sit in a row, right? For instance, when you sit on a bench in a park, that's generally a linear arrangement, right? Because people are sitting side by side, right? That's a linear arrangement. Circular arrangement is when people sit on a circular fashion, right? For instance, in a circular dining table, right? So it's sort of similar to rectangular arrangement, but in this there are no proper sides, right? So the concept of side does not exist in circular arrangement. Double row arrangement is when there are two rows and we have to sort of deal with these. Some people will sit in the second row, others will sit in the first row, and that things of that nature, right? And lastly, we've got complex row arrangement where there are multiple rows. Rows number exceeds 2, right? So it may be 3 rows, 4 rows, 5 rows, or 6 rows, or so on, right? So hopefully but first, an example, all right? Take a look at this, okay? So there are 6 people who are sitting in a row, right? So this implies that this is a linear arrangement, right? So people are sitting in a row. S and Z are in the center, right? A and P are at the ends, and R is sitting to the left of A. The question asks, who is to the right of P? So let's see at this diagrammatically, right? So one of the first things that you have to do is sort of visualize the question, right? So first, let's deal with A and P are at the ends, right? So let's say this is our row, right? Where these A, P, R, X, S, and Z sit, right? So now first, take a look at this. We know that A and P are at the ends, but we don't really know at which end, right? So what we do is we simply start with an estimation, right? But take a look at this particular sentence, right? R is sitting to the left of A, right? Now, since A is at the end, what this implies is that A should be at the rightmost end, because there are people who are present to the left of A, right? So this directly implies that A should be at the rightmost corner, rightmost end. So, and obviously P will be at the leftmost end, right? Is everyone following me on this? All right, cool. So now what we also know is that S and Z are at the center, right? The order does not really matter here. S and Z, they can be interchanged as well, right? Now R is sitting to the left of A. So R is right here. It is directly to the left of A, right? S and Z, it can be Z and S as well. Z, S also works. These are just here to fill the gap, and they don't really have any direct connection to this particular problem. So their order does not matter, S and Z, right? So what is left is X, right? X. So X must be in this position, which is directly to the right of P, right? So the correct answer is X. So these are the types of problems that we'll be dealing with. They're very fun to deal with. It's just like playing a game. It's just like solving a puzzle. You've got hints in the problem, and you simply look at the right places and then solve the problem accordingly, right? So with that said, let's move on to practice problems on seating arrangement. Now take a look at this problem. You guys can feel free to try this on your own, but I'll be solving this right here as well, okay? A, B, C, D, and E are sitting on a bench, right? So this implies that it is a linear arrangement. A is sitting next to B, C is sitting next to D, and D is not sitting with E, right? So we've got three hints. And we know that E is on the left end of the bench, right? So let us quickly make a bench, right? We have quickly made a bench. And in this bench, what we can see is E is on the leftmost end of the bench, right? So E is right here. Now C is on the second position from the right, right? So C should be somewhere around here at the second position from the right, right? The first position from the right is right this position, right this place. And the second position is where C is, right? And A is to the right of B and E, right? So E must be somewhere around here, right? And since it's directly to the right of B and E, it must imply that there exists B somewhere between A and E, right? Right? A is to the right of B and E. This hint is done as well. And A and C are sitting together. So C must, I'm sorry, let me quickly erase this. C is already there, so. All right. A and C are sitting together as well, right? So now the question asks, in which position is A sitting, right? So there are a few things that are clear here. Now about D, right? D is in the rightmost end from it is quite obvious, right? So A is definitely between B and C, right? So that's the correct answer. Correct answer is option number B, between B and C. Is everyone clear on this? I got a few replies in the chat box from Ajay, from Redmi, whoever that is, from Samjana, from Edward, right? And most of them were guessing B. So hopefully you guys are clear on this question as well, right? So with that said, let's move on to the second question. P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, and W are sitting around the circle and are facing the center, right? P is the second. All right, so let's move on with a diagrammatic representation of this, right, directly. And then we'll be moving on to the question because these are just hints right now. Once illustrated here, the questions will be much easier to solve. So one of the first things to do here is to sort of look at the problem in a visual manner. That way, answering the questions will be far, far easier, right? So let's start with a reference from somewhere, right? So let's take T. Now, T is a neighbor of R and V. So that implies that T must be between R and V, right? But we don't know where R is and where V is, right? So let's take a look at the first thing, right? P is to the second right of T, right? So from T towards the right direction, this is the right direction, R. Let's denote this by right, right? So this is the right direction. And P is somewhere around here, right? To the second. So there's an empty gap here. And then we have got P, which is the second to the right of T, right? S is not the neighbor of P. We'll keep this in mind. V is a neighbor of U, and Q is not between S and W. All right. Okay. So from this, what we have is, take a look at this, right? Take a look at this third thing. V is the neighbor of U, right? If we keep V at this particular position, there will be no place left to keep U, right? But we know that V is a neighbor of T, right? So this directly implies that V must not lie between P and T, right? So I'll quickly erase V from this particular spot. V does not lie there. So what that means is that V must be towards the other side of T, right? Towards the left of T. And so since R is another neighbor of T, R must be right here, right? Is everyone clear on this? All right, so everyone is following, right? Now, next up, what we've got is U is the neighbor of V. Now, V is right here. We know one of the neighbors of V is T from the first hint, right? T is the neighbor of R and V. So that also means that V is the neighbor of T, right? So another neighbor of V is U, who must lie right here, right? So from the 8 participants, we've already figured out the position of 5 of these. Now we just have got 3 left, right? S, W, and Q, right? Now take a look at the last hint, right? And the second hint, these two. These two will help us figure out, as this one and this one will help us figure out the last 3 participants in this particular table, right? S is not the neighbor of P, right? So S does not lie here. So we've got 2 positions for S, one here and another one here, right? S does not lie directly here attached to P, right? Now S may lie either here or either here. Now what we are also given is that W is not between U and S, right? So if we keep S here, right? If we keep S here, we may keep W here or W here, but W won't go here. So if we keep S here, let's assume this. If we keep S here, W must go here because W does not lie between U and S, right? So W must go between P and S. Now what we are also given, we are left with Q, right? So Q will lie right here between U and S, right? Right? But the thing about this is U and S, right? So W does not lie between them And so people are saying that it's PRT USWQ, PRT VUSWQ, and that is in fact the correct answer, right? Right? But let's figure out how that came about, right? So W does not lie between U and S, right? And S may lie in between these two positions, right? We also know that Q does not lie between S and W, right? So Q must be somewhere around here or here. So Q, we've got two positions for Q, right? But the correct option in this particular example is this, right? This is not correct, and I'll be explaining why in a while, right? The correct option in this case is, as most of you guessed in the chat box, is S will be right here. W will be, I'm sorry, let me erase that. W will be right here and Q will be right here, right? So this is the correct arrangement in this case, right? So I'll be waiting for a few seconds for you guys to see why this is not the correct. Yep, absolutely. So most of you guys did guess this answer correct. This is the correct arrangement in this case, right? Hopefully everyone is following through in this. We use this particular four hints to arrive at this particular conclusion, right? Is everyone clear on this? Am I properly audible right now? All right, cool. Is everyone clear on this? Okay, absolutely. So this is the proper arrangement in this case, right? So with that said, we'll be directly moving on to the problems, right? Which of the following two are not neighbors, right? So take a look at this. R and V, right? Take a look at R and V. R and V are not the neighbors, right? So at first only we have arrived at the correct answer. R and V are not the neighbors. U and V are neighbors because they lie alongside each other, right? And R and V is a pair that do not lie alongside each other, so they are not the neighbors, right? Next up, we've got which one is immediate right to V, right? So take a look at the figure and try figuring it out, right? Immediate right of V. Yep, most of you guessed this correct. The correct answer is in fact option number D, which is T, right? Next up, all right, these are the correct answers. Next up, we've got which of the following is correct, right? P is to the immediate right of Q. R is between U and V. Q is to the immediate left of W, and U is between this and this, all right? So take a look at the particular figure, right? If you guys have it drawn in your copies, that'll be much easier to see, right? Most of you are guessing the correct option in this case as well. That is, Q is to the immediate left of W, and that is in fact the correct answer, right? So you guys are clear on this as well. Now we've got what is the position of S, right? So we have to find where S lies. S lies between W and U, right? So it, and from the other, so since everyone is facing to the center, what we can also say is, and since W is facing towards the center, we can also say that S is to the immediate right of W, right? From W's perspective. So the correct answer is to the immediate right of W in this case, right? Most of you got this answer correct in the chat box as well. So with that said, we've come to the end of our second problem, right? So with that done, we'll be moving on to the third problem, right? 6 friends, P, Q, R, S, T, and U are sitting around the hexagonal table, each at one corner, and are facing towards the center of the hexagon, right? So the figure in this case will be something, let's make a hexagon first of all. Hexagons are figures with 6 sides, right? So this is our hexagon. Now take a look at the hints, right? P is second to the left of U, right? So let's start with U as our reference. We'll write U in some random corner. Let's do bottom. P is second to the left of U. So that means that P is in this corner, not in this corner, right? Q is neighbor of R and S, right? So the thing about Q is that Q can't be here. So Q must be right here. There are no other options for Q to be because it should be between R and S, right? R and S, right? R and S, right? Now, why did I choose this particular position for R and S and not S and R, right? So that can be deduced from the third hint, right? T is second to the left of S, right? So since S is facing towards the center, left side for S will be in this direction. So since T is second, and since the only blank space is here, T must be right here, and that matches with the hint that we are given, right? So, but if we took S here and R here, R would be second to the left of S, and that would not match with this hint. So I took this last hint and kept this particular position and not S and R, right? So you guys have to think critically on this part as well, right? So hopefully everyone is clear on this one as well. I'll quickly check the chat box to see if there are any confusion. Yep, most of you guessed this correct. This is the correct arrangement, right? But this is not our problem. This is just a preliminary thing that we are doing, just making a mind map in the mind, right? Let's move on to our problems. Which one is sitting opposite to P, right? So the one opposite to P is S, right? Opposite corners of the diagonal, a hexagon, sorry. So S is the correct answer in this case, right? Who is the fourth person to the left of Q, right? Fourth person to the left of Q. So left for Q will be in this direction. So this is the first, this is the second, third, and fourth. So it'll be P, right? P. P is the correct answer. Is everyone clear? Is everyone following right now? Okay, cool. So since some of you are not clear, I'll be explaining these two problems once again, all right? So I hope that everyone is clear about how we got this arrangement. We simply started with a hexagon, right? And we marked a random reference point, U, right? And then we started dealing with this hints, and we started writing other elements accordingly, right? Now with this done, our problem, first problem asks, which one is sitting opposite to P, right? Opposite to P. Opposite to P in this case is S, right? That's pretty obvious looking at the figure. So the correct answer is option number D in this case, right? Now, who is the fourth person to the left of Q is what is asked in the fourth person to the left of Q, right? Is what is asked in the second problem. So take a look at this, right? We've got Q, and since Q is facing towards the center, left of Q will be in this direction, right? In the direction that is pointed by this arrow, right? This downward direction of Q, right? And the fourth person from Q will be S is the first person, first, right? U is the second person, T is the third person, and P is the fourth person. So P is the correct answer in this case, right? So P is the correct answer, right? So hopefully everyone is clear at this moment, right? Is everyone clear? All right, cool. Let's move on to the third problem. Which of the following are neighbors of P, right? So let's go to the figure and see neighbors of P, right? So there are two neighbors of P, R and T. So let's go and see if they are somewhere along the option. Yep, T and R, right? Neighbors of P. They are immediate adjacent elements or adjacent people to P, right? So option number B is the correct one in this case. Which one is sitting opposite to T, right? Opposite to T is this element. So the correct answer is Q in this case, right? Q, which is option number B, right? Is everyone following up to this point? Absolutely, cool. So with that done, let's move on to the fourth question, right? Now, each of these questions are based on information given below. So there will be questions that will follow. And these are the information that are given, right? So we've got 8 people, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, who are seated around a square table, right? So let's quickly make a square table first of all, right? And 2 are present on each side, right? So there are 8 people, right? There are 8 people, and then we've got 2 people who are sitting on each side. Now our hint suggests that J is between L and F, right? So from this, what I have done is I've made a small diagram which basically represents what I've done, and I'll walk you guys through how I made that diagram as well, because making diagrams in this particular problem is a bit time consuming, right? So take a look at this, right? So we've got a particular figure, right? J lies between F and L, right? Now the thing about these problems is that they can be rotated as well, right? So the thing, take a look at this, right? First, we've got J lies between L and F, right? So now why did I choose L and F in this particular position and not made them some sort of other arrangement, right? Why did I not keep J and L in the same particular row, right? So that is because of other hints, right? Because other hints sort of constrain my limits or my choices to keep J as in other positions, right? But in this particular problem, even keeping J and L alongside each other does not really make a difference, right? I mean, you guys can start out any way you like in this particular figure, as long as all the conditions that are asked in this question is fulfilled, right? Right? So take a look at this. G is between I and F. So G, we've already know that the position of F lies here, right? And since G is between I and F, G must be in this particular position, right? So the position of G is already fixed, and I must be right here, right? we've got H, a lady member, is second to the left of G, right? So since G is right here, second to the left of G will be right here where H is currently sitting, right? In this particular position. H lies there. And we've got F, a male member is seated opposite to E, a lady member, right? So take a look at this as well, right? Now the thing about why G and F are kept together is because of this particular option, this particular hint, right? Everyone should pay attention to this problem at this point. F, who is a male member, is seated opposite to E, a lady member, right? So what, and also this hint, right? There's a lady member between F and I. So from this last hint, what we imply is that G is a lady member because G is the only one sitting between F and I. And since no lady members are seated next to each other, E must be at this particular spot. And that directly implies that F should be right here alongside G, right? Because had we rotated this figure one step right here or one step right here, then F would not have been opposite to E. And then this problem would, the correct, all the hints would not have been satisfied, right? So this is a tad bit difficult compared to other problems. Square table arrangements are that way only. What you guys can do is hit and try, right? You guys can start from a particular arrangement. For instance, you guys could have tried keeping J and L at the same particular side in this problem, but then other hints would not have worked in this case. And so you guys would have figured out that my initial arrangement or my initial assumption that J and L lied at the same particular side was incorrect, right? So you guys need to redo that to make J and F lie at the particular, at the same side of the table, right? So someone's asking, where's the right and left side of the table, right? So it depends on where you look at it from, but the questions don't really become that intricate in details in these manners, right? They give you a reference point from where to look at the things, and from there you can decide where the right and left is, right? Because if I look at it from this direction, right, from the bottom to the top, then left becomes here, right becomes here. But if I look at from top to bottom, then the right becomes here and left becomes here, right? So it's not quite clear at this point. You have to have a reference to see which direction is where. So this is the particular arrangement in this case, right? And with this, let's move on to the questions. Who among the following is to the immediate left of F, right? Now the thing about left of F, right? So F is our reference at this point. And since F is facing towards the center, right? F is facing towards the center, the left will be here. So J is the correct answer in this case, right? C is the correct answer. What is true about J and K, right? What is true about J and K? J is male, K is female. J is female, K is male. Both are female, both are male, right? So in this case, the correct option is both are male, because the only ladies in this particular figure are G, E, and H. So J and K are both males is the correct option in this case, right? I'm getting a huge engagement in the chat. Absolutely, you guys are correct as well, right? So with that said, let's move on to the other problem. How many persons are seated between K and F, right? So let's go and take a look at the figure. K and F. K is right here, right? And F is right here. How many people are seated between them? So from either side, right? From either side, what we can see is that there are exactly 3 people. So the correct option in this case is 3, right? So in this sort of problem, sometimes you may not be given the proper direction from which to look, and the number of people at either side of those two person or between them from looking at them from either side may not be the same. So in that particular case, either A, the problem is invalid, or B, you guys will have to make a decision based on the option, right? Because sometimes the number that other side possesses may not be in the option, and only the number from one side will be in the option. And that makes the problem quite doable, right? Who among the following are three lady members, right? So we already know that they are E and H and G, right? So E at G, option number C. E at G, that's the correct one. Yep. Ugu, Isaac, Edward, all of you guessed correct. That's the correct answer, right? Let's move on to the fifth problem. Who among the following is seated between E and H, right? Between E and H. Right, so let's go and take a look at the problem. E and H. E is right here, H is right here, and so K is the only choice left. And that is the correct answer, option number C, K, right? Yep, you guys are correct. Ambika Lujang. Let's move on to the fifth problem, right? In a class, there are 7 students, including boys, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They sit on 3 benches, I, and III, such that at least two students on each bench, and at least one girl on each bench, right? And these are the hints. So first we'll be making a diagram. C, who is a girl student, does not sit with A, E, and D. So we'll keep this in mind, but let us read through other questions as well. So F, the boy student, sits with only B, right? So in a particular row, let me write here, B, right? B and F sit together, right? And since there must be at least one girl on each bench, we can imply that F is boy and B is girl, right? So this is one row. We don't know which row yet. There are 3 rows. We don't know if it's the first, second, or the third. But what we know is that B and F sit together and B is a girl, right? Next up, we've got A sits on the bench 1, right? Bench 1 with his best friends, right? So we'll keep this in mind as well. The best friends is not explicit. They can be anyone. G sits on the bench 3, right? So what we can see from this is that G sits on bench 3. Now what we know is that C does not sit with AED. B and F already sit together in a row and there's no space for other left. So what this directly implies is C must be seated with the leftover student, which is G, right? So in the third row, C and G sit together, where C is the girl, right? C is the girl. This is third row, right? This is the third row, and C and G sit together here. Now, this happens to be the second row, right? Because A is on the first row and A is not here. So this is definitely B and F is definitely the second row. Now A sits with his best friends in first row. So A, E, and D happen to sit on the first row because they are the only ones left, right? And this is the first row. First row, right? Now from this, what we know is that A is a boy, right? Because his is given. So we know that A is a boy, right? A is a boy, but we don't know, and we also know that E is the brother of C, right? So E is a boy as well. E is a boy as well. So that leaves out D, and since one girl should be present in one row, D is definitely a girl, right? So did this make sense to everyone? Yep. Chandan replied, and yep, Chandan is absolutely correct. So, all right, so this made sense to everyone according to the chat. This was quite a fun problem. It was just like solving a puzzle, you know. You had got hints, you move accordingly, move in order from one to another, imply one thing to another. So these problems are really fun for me particularly. I really enjoy them. E is a boy, how? All right, someone's asking, how is E a boy? So it's given that E is the brother of C and brothers are males. So E is the boy. Right. All right, cool. So with that said, let's move on to the problems. How many girls are there out of these 7 students? All right. Yep. So, all right. So at this point, most of you are guessing that the number is 3, right? But that's not correct, right? I mean, from the hints that we have written, there are exactly 3 girls, right? We know, but that's not the correct answer. There are not exactly 3 girls, right? Take a look at G. The gender of G is not specified anywhere. And it's also not written anywhere that 2 girls may not sit together in one bench, right? So 2 girls can definitely sit together in one bench, right? And since gender of G is not properly defined at this particular point, what we know is that it may be either 3 or 4. If G is a girl, then there will be 4. If G is not a girl, I mean, if G is a boy, then there will be 3, right? So does that make sense? All right. So it's either 3 or 4. It can't be 5. It can't be 2. It is either 3 or 4. It's explicitly mentioned in option number C. So option number D, data inadequate, is not the correct answer, right? Because data is adequate and we have got a choice between 2, 3, or 4. So option number C is the correct answer. Is everyone following me on this particular problem? All right, cool. Which of the following groups is the group of girls, right? So take a look at the problem. Which of the following is the group of girls? From this, we know C, B, and D are definitely girls. So C, B, and D, or B, C, D, right? This one is the correct option, right? All right. Yep, most of you are correct. Who sits with C, right? We know that G sits with C, right? I mean, that's, we determine that, obviously. With that done, on which bench there are 3 students, right? That's bench number 1, in which there are A, E, and D, so that's the correct answer. So once you determine who is present, you can easily figure out the rest, right? Now we'll quickly be moving on to other topics, right? We've got another problem, but we'll be skipping this for the time being. We'll be moving to direction sense, right? Questions on direction sense typically involve a person traveling in series of directions, which involve several turns. These have the ability to trace, follow, and find directions accurately. These are one of the easiest questions you can find, right? All you guys need to know is this particular figure and Pythagoras Theorem if the question involves numbers. So for those of you who don't know Pythagoras Theorem, I'm sure most of you do, but the thing is, in right angle triangles, Pythagoras Theorem states that p squared plus b squared equals h squared, where if this is a right angle triangle, this is perpendicular. This is p, assuming this is p, this is b, they can be interchanged, does not really matter. And this is h, right? So p squared, the length of this particular direction plus this equals to the longest side squared. Hypotenuse is the longest side in a right angle triangle. This is the Pythagoras theorem. Keep this in mind as well. This will be used later on in problems involving numeric values. All right. But besides that, all you need to know is this particular figure as well, right? Directions. North is here, west is here, east here, south here. Northwest is between north and west. Northeast likewise, southeast likewise. This is southeast, this is southwest, sorry. This is southwest, right? So all right, so hopefully everyone's clear on this. So let's move on to practice problems. So let's take a look at this example first. Raul put his timepiece on the table in such a way that the 6 p.m. hour hand points to north. So we've got a clock. 6 is here, 12 is here. We've got 3 here, right? Yep, 3 is right there and 9 is here, right? So 6 p.m. this one is pointing to north. So in which direction the minute hand will point at 9:15 p.m. So at 9:15, it will be 9 here. This is the hour hand. And this is the minute hand, right? The one pointing to 3. So it is pointing towards west, right? So the correct answer is option number B in this case, right? All right, with that done, these are the types of questions you'll be asked, right? Let's start promptly because we've got really limited time. Seema started early in the morning on a road towards the sun, right? Early in the morning towards the sun. Now we know that sun rises from the east, so she is traveling towards east, right? So let's trace her direction. This is Seema, right? I mean, this can be done in your mind as well because these are really easy, but I'll be showing them right now just for the sake of simplicity. This is Seema. She is running towards sun, right? After some time, she turned to her left, which is upwards because she's turning towards east. So she turned toward north or her left, right? Because this is my screen visible to everyone? Can I get a heads up ASAP? All right, cool. So the correct answer to this question is south. I hope that's clear to everyone, right? Let's move on to the other problem. Town A is to the west of town B, right? So we've got town A here, right? Which is towards the west of town B, west, right? W. Town Q is to the east of town B. Yeah, I'm sorry, town P is to the south of town A. So town P is right here to the south, right? This is south direction of town A. Town Q is to the east of town P. So town Q is to the east of town P. So the question asks, town Q is towards which direction of town A, right? So this direction is what we are seeking for, right? The correct answer in this case is definitely SE or southeast, right? Option number C. That's the correct answer in this case. All right, so most of you guessed this correct. Let's move on to the other problems. All right, you guys can try this problem and let's see if you guys can solve this in using Pythagoras theorem or anything else, logic. All right, so I don't see any engagement in the chat box, so let's solve this problem quickly, all right? A man walked 30 meters towards north, right? Yep, I'm getting some engagement in the chat box right now from Ambika from Bujan, and they guessed it correctly, right? A man walks 30 meters towards north. So the man starts here, walks 30 meters towards north, right? Then he turned right and walked 45 meters. Turns right, walks 45 meters, right? Then he turns right again from this, so that's bottom, and walks 45 meters, right? So 45 meters, 45 meters, right? Then he turns left, right? From this particular position, his left is going to be here and walks 15 meters, right? And from here, I'm sorry, he walks 5 meters from here. Just let me erase the 1. Walks 5 meters from here. And then he turns left from here, which is up, and then walks 15 meters. 15 meters, right? So how many meters is he from the starting position? So he started here, ended here, right? Now take a look at this, right? If I draw is just a second. All right. So right, so he ends here. Now the difference between 45 and 30 is 15. So so what we can see is that he lies, I mean, his ending position is in a horizontal line from his starting position. So what we do is we simply add the distances, right? Since this is a rectangle, this is going to be 45. And since this bottom one is a rectangle as well, this is going to be 5 up 1. So 45 plus 5 is going to be 50 meters, right? So the correct answer is 50 meters east, right? Is everyone following on this? All right, cool. Let's move on to question number 4. A person starts from point A, travels 3 kilometers eastwards, right? So he starts from point A, right? 3 kilometers eastwards, right here, 3 kilometers to B, right? Then he turns left, which is down, and travels thrice the distance to C. So this is C, right? He turns left again. So from this, left is going to be here, and travels 5 times the distance covered between A and B, which is, so this distance is going to be 9 because it's thrice this distance. And this distance is going to be 15, right? Because it's 5 times this initial distance between A and B, right? And reaches his destination at D, right? The shortest distance between starting point and the destination, so between A and D, right? So this line. Shortest distance basically means the straight line connecting this initial position and the final position. Keep this in mind. We have to find this distance, right? So what we do is we drop a perpendicular from A to CD, right? Now this is definitely going to be parallel, so this is going to be 9, right? This distance, right? This perpendicular is going to be 9. And this particular distance, right? This distance, bottom one, is going to be 15 minus 3, right? Because this entire is 15 from C to D, and from A to B is 3. So this is going to be 12, right? So we've got a right angle triangle with 9, 12. So this one, by using Pythagoras theorem, is going to be root under 9 squared plus 12 squared, right? Which comes out to be root under 225. This is a pretty standard right angle triangle. You guys can directly memorize this as well. 9, 12, and 15, right? 15, this one, right? So this distance is 15. The correct answer is 15 kilometers in this case. 9, 12, and 15 is a right angle triangle, right? These are called Pythagoras triplets. Pythagorean triplets, right? So keep this in mind as well. A to B toward eastwards, right? So A to B towards eastwards means that he's moving from A to B towards the east direction, right? This is east if we take this as north. If we take up as north, this is going to be east. I mean, this is pretty conventional, so I did it this way, right? All right, cool. I hope everyone's clear on this, right? So let's move on to the last topic that we are going to discuss today, Venn diagram, right? So the main aim of Venn diagram is to test the relation between some items of a group by diagrams. In this questions, you'll have to figure out, all right, so take a look at this, right? And I'll try to verbally explain what this means, right? So this Venn diagram or this circle, right? I hope everyone's familiar with Venn diagrams. They're basically used to represent a collection of things or sets, as they are called mathematically, right? So this particular Venn diagram or this particular circle represents mothers. Other one represents sisters. Now notice how they overlap, right? They overlap because mothers can be sisters as well, right? Mothers can be sisters as well. So due to this reason, they overlap, right? And since sisters and mothers are all women, right? Are all women in a conventional sense, they are encapsulated between this larger circle or ellipse, right? Which represents women, right? So this represents a relation between mothers, sisters, and women in a Venn diagram, right? Is everyone clear on this? All right, cool. So let's move on to practice problems. Now, these are the Venn diagrams. I mean, they are just represented here for a bigger picture, but they are present in the later slide as well. So let's move on to that. Right, so it's a bit below here due to spatial constraints, but bear this in mind. Let's move to question number 1. Which of the following diagrams indicates the best relation between travelers, train, and bus? Right? All right, so the answers are quite mixed. Some are saying C, some are saying F. Right, the correct answer in this case is going to be option number F, right? F. I'll be explaining why, right? So let's go and take travelers, train, and bus, right? Let's go and take a look at F number, right? Let's say this one is travelers, right? TRAV. This one is train. And this one is, yeah, I'm sorry, this is not the correct representation. I'm so sorry about this. I rushed here. All right, so let me draw it properly, right? The middle one is travelers, right? Because it encapsulates both of those. It's common to both of these. This one is trains, right? And this one is, if I'm correct, bus, right? So take a look at this. Travelers may either travel by trains, which this overlap represents, right? Or they may travel by a bus, right? So from this, what we can see is that travelers may travel through trains or bus, right? And they may not travel through any of those, right? They may travel through cars. They may travel through bikes, right? And so they may travel through other options as well, right? So it basically represents that travelers, so this basically represents that properly, right? Actually, figure C and figure F are quite similar. I mean, they are exactly the same. I'm not sure why this one is even kept here, right? But for those of you who guessed option number C, that's correct as well, right? Cool. All right, so someone's asking why not H? That's because a traveler who is traveling at a bus cannot simultaneously travel through a train, right? So they can only travel through one particular transportation at a time. That's the reason, right? Next up, we've got which of the following diagrams indicates the best relation between profit, dividend, and bonus. All right, so every one of you guessed this correctly. The correct answer is option number A. Why? Because this bigger one is profit, right? And bonuses, this is bonus, right? And this is dividend, right? Bonus and dividend are things that are paid out of profit. Dividends are a sum of money that is paid to the company shareholders in a particular interval, right? So if you own the company's shares, right, you get dividends at, let's say, 6 months or a year. That depends on the company's policy. And bonus is something that's provided to employees based on the profit that the company gains, right? So these both are encapsulated between profit. They are direct results of profit, right? So they are indicated by option number A, right? Now, people that get dividend cannot get bonus simultaneously. So due to this reason, option number H is not the correct one as well, right? Or option number I per se. Which of the following diagram indicates the best relation between women, mothers, and engineers? Yep. Almost every one of you guessed this correct. The correct answer is option number E. Let me tell you why, right? So the question asks for women, mothers, and engineers, right? So this larger one, outer one, is women, right? This is women. This is mothers, M, right? And this outer one is engineers, right? So this makes sense now. Engineers can be women, so which is represented by this part. They can be mothers as well, right? And since it's not completely within, this outer part represents that they can be of other gender as well, right? They need not only be women, they can be men as well, right? So the correct answer to the particular problem is option number E. Which of the following diagrams indicates the best relationship between factory, product, and machinery, right? I'm seeing the chat box. Yep, the correct answer is option number A only. Why? Because take a look at this, right? In this, outer circle represents the factory, and these two represent machinery and products, which are both kept inside the factory. So from even an intuitive sense, option number A makes sense in this particular case, right? Last up, which of the following diagrams indicates the best relation between author, lawyer, and singer? All right, so this might be quite confusing because in this case, the correct option can be either H or D, right? An author, lawyer, a person can be all of author, lawyer, or singer at the same time, right? But in mathematical sense, we'll look at these three things as disjoint sets, right? So we'll assume, I mean, if these questions appear in your examinations, please assume that a person cannot be all three of those, and please take all three of those as disjoint sets, right? And since that's the case, option number D is going to be the correct one, right? We'll assume that all of those are disjoint in these particular questions, right? So with that done, we've come to the end of our session. I skipped a few questions due to time constraints, right? But hopefully this session was interactive. I mean, this session was interactive, but hopefully it was fun as well. And you guys learned something new, right? So these are useful resources on the internet, which you guys can visit in your leisure time to sort of see through them, right? So take a screenshot of this if you want right now.